In today's video, I explore the wild island of Kerrera with one camera and one lens, taking photos just like these. Kerrera is a short boat ride from the west coast of Scotland. It is a small but rugged island, full of craggy coastline, undulating hills and, of course, sheep. I'm basically only coming here for a day and a half. I'm going to be travelling light and I wanted to keep things really simple. Now it just happens that I still have the Hasselblad 907X on loan, so I thought I'd give it one last outing, but this time bringing just the camera and the one lens. When I've taken this camera out before, or in fact when I take any of my cameras out, I tend to go with quite a big kit bag full of things, with wide lenses, with zooms, maybe a prime in there as well. But there is something actually quite freeing about just having the one lens. I had mixed weather on this trip, but the first evening was lovely, so I took some shots in the cabin I was staying in and managed to capture the moment this sailing ship positioned itself right between these two hills. I then had a late afternoon wander down to the rocky beach and secured myself a couple of images, but it was later that evening that the sky started to fill with colour, so I walked up a beautiful pathway, flanked by flowers, and positioned myself hoping for an excellent sunset.
Been eyeing up this bit of headland down here, and I reckon this is going to get me a much nicer shot overlooking these rocks as they kind of go up the coast. Fortunately, we did have nice light on them. The sun is behind the cloud over here, which obviously looks amazing, but it does mean that right now the light is a little flat on these rocks, which is a bit of a shame. I'm really having to work harder with just having the one lens with me to try and find the right composition, but I'm also loving the challenge. I'm clearly not loving the challenge of trying to film myself on my iPhone with hair that looks like this. Good lord. It's not my favourite composition, but I do quite like that we're seeing a bit more of the water on the rocks down here, so I'm going to give it a go. I brought my shutter speed to 1/30th of a second, so I am just going to use the 2-second self timer just so that I'm not nudging the camera. As you can see, we have got beautiful colours in that sky at the moment, but because the sun is setting right behind all of these hills and the castle here, all of this is thrown completely into shadow, so you can barely even see that castle on that bit of rock, which is a real shame.
The next morning brought rain.
It's a beautiful view, but as you can see, the weather is not playing ball. It is hammering down with rain, low grey clouds, zero light, zero contrast. It is not the most photogenic of scenes, because I do love where the castle is positioned. If I switch to the super wide lens on my iPhone, you can just see beautiful rocky bay here, rocky bays around, it's just so cool. So as a very wide panorama, I do think this looks amazing, but just not when the weather is quite like it is at the moment. Yeah, Not ideal.
Nevertheless, I persevered, taking one of the island's hiking paths and trying to capture some nice views as I saw them. I was shooting mostly using the X-Pan panorama mode on the Hasselblad, which I think works particularly well with this scene. It really caught my eye thanks to the billowing dark clouds and the light hitting the vivid green hills in the foreground.
Thanks, woolly friends.
I continued on my walk and then came across something surprising. This boat looked amazing, and I tried to take a couple of nice wider shots, putting the boat into the context of its environment, including doing a 2-minute exposure using a 10-stop ND filter to try and blur the motion of the clouds streaking overhead. I quite like the result, as I think the moving nature of the clouds nicely draws contrast to the static nature of the boat. Then I moved in for some close-ups, wanting to capture the amazing textures of the wood and a couple of interesting internal compositions. Later on, I found this fisherman on his boat, which I thought made for a nice shot, again using that wide panoramic aspect ratio. The coastal trail was pretty wild going, but it was so nice simply to just be there, snapping a few shots on my way, but not feeling overburdened with a needlessly huge kit bag of gear that I simply wouldn't have used. I did capture this shot that I am quite pleased with. It's an RNLI lifeboat speeding along the water, and I love how the vibrant orange of the craft stands out so well against that moody background. That evening, I did try the castle view again, but the grey conditions persisted, and I don't think this night's attempt was as good as the one I already had. I only had a short time in the following morning before I had to get back to the boat, so I took the opportunity to take some detailed shots around the farm where I was staying, before walking my way back to the harbour, capturing this serene scene of a sailboat, this time on the shore, and a pretty standard photo of a tractor because, well, you know, why not? My last shot, of course, was a portrait of a sheep. Now, despite shooting on such a great camera as this Hasselblad, the photos you've seen today have not been my best work. That sunset on the first night did look great, but unfortunately I was just out a little bit too late for it and I wasn't quite in the right position. So that's a kind of a missed opportunity through no fault of the camera or the lens. It's just me, wrong place, wrong time. Although I don't think I've got my favourite photos I've ever taken, it has just been a real joy being here. And I really liked that extra challenge of just having the one lens. Maybe on your next trip, you just take that little 35mm prime, maybe it's just your 50mm prime, and by just having that one lens, it puts the challenge back on you, the photographer, to find the shots that you want. But that brings me to an end of today's video. I do hope you've enjoyed watching it. It may not have been some of my best work, and most of it I've just filmed walking along with my iPhone. But if you have enjoyed it, then do please hit that like button, and of course consider subscribing to my channel if you don't already, and I will see you next time. Hopefully less rained on, maybe a bit warmer too, because very cold. All right, bye.